Hello learners, in this video we'll focus on the poetic devices used in the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. So let's get started. Before we proceed, let's try to understand what we already know about the poem. A Tiger in the Zoo by Leslie Norris employs several poetic devices to create vivid contrast between the tiger's natural habitat and its captivity. Now let's find out what do we mean by poetic devices. Poetic devices are special tools which we can use to make our poetry more interesting. They help us to spark emotions and paint vivid pictures in a reader's mind. Now let's try to understand the poetic devices used in this poem. The first poetic device is imagery. By imagery, we mean using descriptive words to create a picture in the reader's mind. And in the poem, we can see that the poet creates vivid pictures to appeal to our senses. It helps us see, hear and feel the tiger's situation. Now let's try to understand this with few examples from the poem as well. The first example is, he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. It vividly describes the tiger's appearance and restricted movement. Another example is, sliding through long grass, brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. We imagine the wild and the longing of freedom by imagery. Now let's try to understand another poetic device which is used in this poem, and that is alliteration. By alliteration, we mean when words start with the same sound. Let's try to understand how and where it is used in the poem. Repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of closely placed words is alliteration. It adds rhythm and musicality to the lines, and some of the examples of alliteration used in the poem is, pads of velvet, his strength behind bars, stalks in his vivid stripes, S sound is repeated, and plump deer pass, P sound is repeated. So this is alliteration. Now let's talk about another poetic device, that is enjambment. The continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond a line or stanza is enjambment. In the poem, how it is used? When one line flows into the next line without a pause. It gives a natural rhythm like thoughts or speech. Example, he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars. Here no pause is used, so here this enjambment poetic device is used by the poet. Let's talk about another poetic device, which is personification. Giving human qualities to animals or non-human things is personification. And in the poem, the poet deploys this by assigning human-like qualities to non-human things. Example, in his quiet rage, it gives the tiger human-like emotions, emphasizing his frustration. Now it's time for another poetic device, and that is contrast. That shows differences between two ideas or situations, and how it is used in the poem. Let's find out. The poem contrasts two lives, the tiger in the wild and the tiger in a cage. When it is in a wild, it is powerful, free and natural, whereas when it is caged, it is shown helpless, angry and restricted. So it emphasizes the theme of lost freedom. It's time for another poetic device, symbolism. Using objects or ideas to represent a deeper meaning. Now let's try to understand where has the poet employed symbolism in the poem. Here, cage symbolizes imprisonment, lack of freedom, and stars, they represent freedom, hope and a world beyond reach. So these symbols add emotional depth to the poem. Now let's talk about another poetic device, that is irony. A contrast between what is expected and what actually happens is irony. Let's understand through the poem. The tiger, a powerful predator, is ironically shown as helpless and confined. Also, he should be terrifying in the wild, but he is reduced to pacing a few steps in a cage. And now, let's try to understand metaphor. A direct comparison between two unlike things without using as or like is called metaphor. And in the poem, as we can see, pads of velvet quiet, here the poet compares tiger's movement to something soft and silent without using as or like. So it is metaphor. Now let's understand the oxymoron. Oxymoron is a phrase combining two opposite or contradictory words, and here in the poem, as we can see, in quiet rage, it combines two contradictory terms to highlight the tiger's suppressed anger. And last but not the least, we'll try to understand the rhyme scheme. The pattern of rhyming words at the end of each line is called the rhyme scheme. It's time for us to know the rhyme scheme of the poem. The poem follows the rhyme scheme ABCB. Now let's find out how. He stalks in his vivid stripes. Stripes is denoted by a different sound, so we'll denote it with the alphabet A. The few steps of his cage. Cage and stripes is different, so we'll denote it with a different alphabet B. On pads of velvet quiet. Quiet is again a different sound, so we'll denote it with a different alphabet C. In his quiet rage. Rage and cage, they sound similar, so we'll denote it with B. So the rhyme scheme is A, B, C, B. So dear learners, we have seen what is a poetic device and also the poetic device used in the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. It's time for a task now. The task is you have to make a poem to a poster. Convert one stanza into a visual poem poster using some key lines, the poetic devices highlighted, also matching illustrations or magazine cutouts. I'm sure you'll be able to make this poster beautifully. So we'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning!